Very good evening, my dear EHS friends. Today, Wednesday, 22nd March 2017. Today's session is the seventh in EHS State of Nation India, based on the survey I had sent and folks have responded. And today's session is going to cover the basics of industrial hygiene and occupational medicine. What I'm going to do in the next 45 minutes or so is the what is IH, how it's done, why it's so critical, and how it can be a value add to business, and also the occupational medicine. This is very critical aspect, and more so these days with all the work-related stress and ergonomics. So I have put in my experience and practically what we have done with my good industrial hygiene folks across the world and the great occupational medicine doctors. I mean, I was very privileged and fortunate to have worked with them and learned a lot. So I'm just trying to pass these information in these slides, and as I put, it's just a thought of knowledge sharing. I would, will not claim that I am the experts on this. And so if you have any questions, any comments, please feel free to share with me. And I have, that's where network is all about, whom who can help you out. And luckily I have people all over the world to help out. So any questions, comments, please get in touch, and the presentation will follow. And I am extremely thankful for folks responding to my blog and my YouTube videos. I'm glad that it's hitting, and you can also subscribe to my blog automatically in email. Go to my blog and I'll put the links, and if you just post your email, it will come as soon as I update a post. So thank you so much. I look forward to hearing responses, and have a great evening, and God bless. Very good evening, my dear EHS friends. As I indicated in the introduction, this session, the seventh, is covering the industrial hygiene and occupational medicine in a manufacturing environment. So as I indicated, I'll try to pass on what I have learned and what I have done, and so again, I wouldn't for even a moment consider that I am a great subject matter expert. It's just to give you a feel, and people have asked about this, so I thought I will pass it on to people. So if you have any questions, post it, as I always have friends and colleagues, great guys in IH and occupational medicine over the last 30 years across 4 continents. So I'll try to get the answer from them. So, right. So very straightforward. I mean, health is a very fundamental aspect. That's what is a saying. If the wealth is lost, nothing is lost. If health is lost, something is lost. If character is lost, everything is lost. So health plays a huge part, and more so with these days, the stress, the workplaces, the technology getting complex. So it's very essential that you play organizations play a huge part and make it happen. And so this was even known in old days, and even we have our god of health, Lord Dhanvantri, and Greeks. The whole industrial hygiene is based around the Greek philosophy, Greek Hygieia. So that's where hygiene is a word from him, and why keep it. I mean, hygiene extends now everywhere. I mean, you need work hygiene, ethics, everything. So there is a lot of things in HR where if hygiene is missing, the workplace is not a good place to work. Although you won't know when hygiene is around. So you will know only when hygiene is missing, when it's absent. So what is industrial hygiene? It is when you do work, there are always exposure. We will see in the forthcoming slides, and it can have consequences to human beings in terms of disease. And so the exposure, what we measure is occupational hygiene, and the diseases which we treat arising due to those exposure is occupational medicine. and these all constitutes occupational health. And so industrial hygiene and occupational health goes together, kind of hand in hand. So you do it, and then the people are affected for various factors, and then you take corrective actions. So it is proactive engagement. I mean, again we will see it, it's all risk assessments, so it's you will be wondering, I mean, today everything is risk based in terms of the toxic substances and harmful physical biological agents in the environment. So you need to know the hazard and then quantify the risk and work and mitigate, and if you are happy with the layers of protection and threshold, you work with it, otherwise you mitigate it. So it's all again once again boils down to risk assessments and knowing the hazards. So in terms of occupational medicine, this is the norm, today workers compensation more and more, to work the injury illness, you have a medical surveillance, disability absence management, how will you manage, so this is again a hygiene factor. If absence is more, then the workplace is demoralized and demotivated. Complex care management, disease, very both in due to work or non-work, I mean more so these days, drugs and alcohol, those kind of things. Health and wellness, more essential these days, the stress is so much, so the health checks and all which are helped out, that all leads to productivity enhancement leading to corporate health. So these are, I'm only going to focus my these discussions around industrial aspects. So that's how the whole occupational medicine fits with industrial hygiene in this overarching aspects. So what are the basic ethics? The industrial hygiene team is, see, like with any management theory, I mean, we all work for the organization. I mean, organization interest comes first, and organization is here to make profits. So whatever we do has to be that number one. I mean, we are here to make profits, and whatever value add we do it. And we as safety professionals have a primary responsibility to protect employer as a primary focus from liability and other situations. That's where it's very essential that our organization interest comes first, and so that's where conflicts are all inevitable. I mean, there is always going to be, which is right, ethics or whatever, the rules, regulations versus the situation, monitoring, economic situation. I mean, conflicts, I mean, if organization is without conflict, it is rare. I mean, that's what there is a saying by Mark Hartzman of Manager Tool. Conflict is two people in a community. So in a county, so if in a village there are two people, there are going to be conflicts. So it's so more than one person is a conflict, because there are always going to be situations where we don't agree. So that's where the common way path is found, and so the legal technology aspects will help to come to resolutions. So why people should focus on industrial hygiene and occupational health? I'm straightforward. I'm not going to read this. Mainly, you have to focus from liability. I mean, it's getting mad and mad. I mean, the one of the things you may feel is, more the influencers come in these days, you are exposed. I mean, people are going to post anything in Facebook or Twitter or blog or wherever, just send an anonymous note, and so you need to really work around that. And I know of cases now even in India where activists just go and stealth way they do, and you have to be right all the time. I mean, that's where you need to do the right things at the right place and 100% of the time. I mean, so it's very essential, and more so these days, sound mind and a sound body it improves the morale. I mean, that's where, I mean, if you see that, it will be the aspect. So goals of industrial hygiene are very similar to risk assessments: anticipate, recognize, evaluate, and control. That's what it's a risk, industrial risk they should call it. That's why they call it industrial hygiene, and work around that. And that's where for anticipation you need to know a good hazard sense, and that's where these presentations will help based on what are the substances you handle. So in our workplace we handle chemicals, we handle microbial agents, noise, radiation, depends on what kind of business you are in. Ergonomics becoming a huge impact. I mean, if you ask me, in my last 10 years, ever since 2007. I am, and our risk profiles are showing that ergonomics is going to be a big challenge to implement, more and so with the laws tightening and standards coming and liability becoming. Companies need to really focus on ergonomics, and so again the hot and cold environment. So who all form the occupational health and hygiene team? I mean, so again, it's all everybody. I mean, it's together working. Safety is no longer safety manager's job. That's where, as I wrote in my blog, the evolution from pathological to calculative, reactive, generative organizations. In the proactive and generative organization stage, everybody contributes and everybody has their own roles, definitions, and contributions. So that's where through the risk-based approach, people need to engage in this and work. So of course there are subject matter experts to guide, but ultimately it's everybody's responsibility to work the occupational health and industrial hygiene. So industrial hygiene is how much to be done, what are the hazards to be identified, how will you evaluate the hazards, and how will you control the hazards. So again, I mean, it's just like an overarching risk philosophy: risk identification, risk evaluation, risk mitigation, and propagation, and risk communication. I mean, so communication is very essential in good organizations. What happens is people get to know everything, and there are absolutely no secrets. So that's the main aspect in which these forms work, right? So what are the problems? Right. So you have to do this IH exposure. We will see it in detail. Many organizations have indoor air quality. I mean, workplaces where dust, noise, contaminations, or external places from an environmental perspective, ambient air quality monitoring, pollutants, asbestos, lead. Many places in the world still have a lot of asbestos. I mean, companies are spending a fortune in asbestos abatement and lead. I mean, you need to remember, asbestos and lead were the common things even 30 years back, and companies were working a lot until they found the hazard, and now they are doing so much remediation. Remediation is a big subject by itself. I'm not going to touch that, and good companies do a lot of work on remediation. The historic legacy in which they did the sin, and now they are working through funding to clean up those places. Ergonomics comes a lot today. Ergo specialists are there everywhere to work from office standpoint and also the workplace standpoints, repetitive motions, backs, and shoulder, everywhere. I mean, so it has to work, and also with all the unpredictability in monsoons, in floods and those kind of things, the IH folks need to work on mold, fungus, all those kinds of things. I mean, I don't know if there have been some deaths of people due to Ligniers disease, due to the internal air quality, due to the cooling towers. So and mold, and that's what. So you really need to know that these are the things to do. Unless you know about it, what you don't know, you don't see, and what you don't analyze. So that's where it's good to the unknown unknowns need to be totally minimized and work for that. So from who will do, who will sample, that's what, who. So that unless you have a clear delegated job definitions, responsibilities, so there is a saying, everybody we thought somebody will do, in the end nobody did. So it should not happen that way. So a clear-cut definitions and process and programs and procedures, which I will list in the forthcoming slides, will help you to mature the whole process. Right. So what are the workplace hazards? I mean, many of you will know. I mean, that's what I keep saying. What I'm going to share is, you may know many of it, and it's just a question of knowing, doing gap. I keep saying, what you know, do you do? Is your organization allowing it to do? Is the culture exist? Are you open, honest, transparent to just to have a soul searching to see what is it, those things that need to be addressed, and how are you going to address it, and how it's linked to your policy, programs, and procedures and action plans to mitigate those risks. So I mean, some of you may feel that there is nothing new here. I mean, possibly, it's as I keep saying, you just Google how to make a bomb, there will be 5 lakh pages, but not everybody can make a bomb, so that's the same way. So just knowing doing gap is to be totally minimized. So in terms of this, these are the physical, chemical, ergonomic aspects. In terms of chemical hazards at workplace in a manufacturing setup, various aspects that come in, and also the effect on human beings. I mean, so the chemicals, when you handle, there are acute versus chronic. Acute is short term, immediate exposure. Chronic is long term. I mean, so sometimes I know many of my colleagues, fathers, who worked in mine, died due to silicosis, pneumoconiosis, the businesses working in cotton, coal, and foundries in the old United States. So it affects you after you retire. So that's where the record keeping is very essential, and monitoring is key. So very aspect of chemical hazard. One of first is irritant, straightforward. I mean, so you have direct contacts and transfer goes through your bloodstream, reversible, irreversible. So need to really focus, and this is where sensitization. So it can have a delayed reaction. Sometimes some chemicals have delayed reactions, and so that's where you need to really clearly know. And one of the key aspect that can give you these such information is the safety data sheets, and so that's where every substance you handle should have some chemical safety data sheets. Try to update it and keep it, and use it thoroughly to get the data. It will go a long way to know the characteristics and effects of substances on human beings. Asphyxant, straightforward, nitrogen. So you handle these chemicals, it causes suffocation, and people can die. So it replaces oxygen, and carbon monoxide goes into hemoglobin, and can absorb close to more than 10 to 15 times greater than oxygen. So you will, and it's a colorless, odorless gas. So you will not even know you are breathing carbon dioxide. So that's where in the automobile exhaust, and some furnaces where they use for steel and those kind of stuff, you need to really know carbon dioxide need to be closely watched and monitored, and controlled, and alarms need to be in place if the threshold levels goes up. And so it's very essential to take care of the asphyxant. Central nervous system depressant, many chemicals are there, narcotics, anesthetist, and depressant. I mean, one of my chemicals I handled in a pharmaceutical in my early career. This is a very addicting substance, so it just gives you a feeling of high, so the neuro effect. So it can stimulant. So you can easily get addicted if the substance is exposed. So it's a painkiller. That's where then you will want it so that you feel the high. So you need to be very much clear, even in finished product. So that's where. So sometimes it reverse aspects. Some of the medicines use cyanide and you get a life-saving drug, and some of the products that can come from harmless raw materials and can give a very, very stimulating effect to which you can get addicted. So need to really know those substances and work around that. Many chemicals have this kind of impact on the body. So just look for it. The MSDS will clearly say and take actions accordingly through engineering controls, and that's a part of risk assessments. So it's very essential that safety data sheets plays a key part in knowing about substances and engineering controls, risk mitigation, and genetic activities, carcinogens, mutagen, teratogen, and reproductive systems hazard. And this is more so in pharmaceuticals and active products, ingredients, pharmaceuticals, where if women are exposed, biological levels. So you need to pregnant women, how will you manage it, what are the effects, need to be really close monitored and measured and communicated, and programs need to be in place. So I'll show one risk assessment finally. I mean, this is where anticipation is key. Well, that's what again I keep saying. What good companies do well, knowing, doing, gap. They know everything and then they work the plans in place through strategy, planning, policies, execution. So work for this. That's where you need to really have a good network, team, and communication, personal touch, pre-wire, hardwire before meetings, and work that through the management of change and cradle to grave process, product stewardship. I mean, today many parts of the world substitute it now is happening. So many chemicals are getting replaced, and consumers are very aware and smart about it. I mean, more so in terms of health effects. Even in car today, they think that there should be no mercury, no cadmium, no lead. Car may have hardly milligrams, but even car automobiles are focused on these kind of chemicals. So you can imagine. So the awareness is going a lot, and this is also becoming a trade barrier. I mean, REACH. I don't know if you know. I was very lucky to work with REACH to implement it in our business model: registration, evaluation, and authorization of chemicals. So if you need to supply these some of the articles and products, you need to really register with EU, and you need to know those toxicity and other information and work through it. So, and then you need to work on how will you reduce these kind of contaminants and non-essential things, substances. So that's where this helps. Legally there are a lot of good things. I mean, that's where in the developed world there are a lot of standards and programs that works, and that's where threshold weighted average, which gives exposure of chemicals for substances, even physical activities for 40 hours a week, short-term exposure for 15 minutes, maximum allowable concentration, MAC we call it in Germany. So these are the norms. They are available and you can use it and make it happen. And some in India there are some permissible exposure limits, but it varies from state to state. Unfortunately, the most developed industrialized states have no norms. I mean, I'm very sorry to say that. So take it from whichever is the state that has put in place and try to work it. So don't think that in my state it's not applicable, so I won't do it. So it will carry you nowhere when the push comes to shove. So again, ACGIH, American Council of Industrial Hygienists, have come with very good things. NIOSH has done a superb job. Every professional should have the NIOSH pocket guide and use around it to work the values. So, and start with something. That's what. And communicate the MSDS. MSDS gives everything. I mean, so that's where I would say, and try to keep an updated material safety data sheets. Odors can help, but again many substances are odorless, so don't go with odor. And then people have issues when you handle some substances. You always get the irritants, drowsiness, personality changes, mood changes. There are many substances which can cause high and low, like nitrous oxide. It's a laughing gas. So if you are there, you are going to laugh uncontrollably. Or some of the pharma agents which can be depressant. So you are going to feel mood swings, and so you need to really work for it. And also there could be cluster of problems. Many substances in workplace can combine and give you the effect. So it's very essential that you need to know for it, and material safety data sheet is a good thing to do. Physical, when we go, workplace hazards from chemicals, dust, very straightforward, and dust can cause even havoc. I mean, if you have seen Google Imperial Sugar explosion, sugar dust just ripped the factory. And I was in the US that time when the incident happened in 2008 February, and it was just unbelievable. Sugar can just rip off. So just look for dust, more than the health hazard, also the physical hazard in terms of explosion. So fibers can goes into the body, can cause bisonosis and those kind of things. Corrosives, temperatures, cold storage rooms can cause problems. Ionizing radiations and non-ionizing radiation. Dust, this is where there's dust is measured in terms of microns rather, and the respirable particulate matter is need to be measured very keenly. That's where it goes in and gets stuck in the lungs. So you need to be very sure that you may measure dust, but you need to even measure the respirable dust, so that it doesn't go in and work for it from a physical hazard standpoint. Noise, I don't have to speak about this, straightforward. Many companies have this issue, and trying to work, and also work from an engineering standpoint. I mean, don't give just the muffler, a noise muffler, and ear muffler and earplugs. No, work it from a engineering control standpoint, and noise, so work from audiometry testings, so these are these tests available now. Luckily, I mean, many of these equipments have come to India. Even IH monitors samples, like if I remember in 1980s when I started my career, and we were handling all sorts of chemicals. I mean, you take dimethyl sulfide and epichlorohydrin and those kind of stuffs, and we had to struggle. I mean, just get the Drager tubes, import it from Switzerland or Germany, and pay a fortune, and then qualitatively do it. Whereas today, everything methods are available, and good IH specialists are available. I mean, I'm told even there is a good program on IH in Nadia in Gujarat, and Maharishi Mehta does a great job. I mean, I would say he's the father of IH in India. A man very humble beginning, and gone a long way, and done a superb job in industrial hygiene aspects to make workplace safe. So so consultants are plentifully available, and methods are available. So you need just to update yourself and coordinate and work that. That's what. So the noise sources, work around, so you need to work around 85 decibels. 90 is the limit, but we always insist 85 as our from a legal liability perspective. So, and then work the standard shift in threshold and work around it. So work the workplace monitorings, dosimeters. So these are the noise levels you need to measure. So this is what is US OSHA, and I think India also has these limits. But as I said, we always try to work around 80 as the cutoff point, and above 80 we report it in our as a good practice in our incident reporting systems, and try to work corrective action so that there are no legal liabilities. 90, you are you are on a threshold, so you don't want you measuring 90 and then some authorities come and inspect it shows 92. So work on the the lower side and internally work around it. I mean, that's what good organizations always do. I mean, even in environment, we our COD BOD limits are 70% of the government limits, and everywhere in the world, and moment it exceeds 70, we even report it to our chairman, so that kind of thing. So you don't want even to go to that in your event tracking system. So work the internal limits for yourself and make it happen. So noise is also in. There are a lot of efforts, voluntary efforts happening in many countries to bring the level to 80, so that I expect sooner. I don't know. I mean, with all the political change happening, whether this will come, but many efforts are now in place to make the threshold weighted average to 80 decibels. Right? So these are the ways by which you can. Noise is very essential. I mean, noise is going to be part of the system, so, and the persons are exposed whether they like it or not. So, and hearing makes a huge impact. I mean, if you don't hear, your social life is gone, and even personal life can get wrecked. I mean, like I put in my blog yesterday, Chip Heath's and Dan Heath's video. Change is tough, and so when you have to do something that not required or not possible, then the irritation and laziness creep in. And change here is like you are hearing beautifully, now you can't hear, so you have to adjust, your family has to adjust, that brings in its own problems. So that's where you need to really work around to make changes happen. Heat stress, very now in India, the temperatures coming in, so watch out for that. and cold also, so the frostbite and hypothermia. So these are all the incidents that can work, right? So if it rises more than 3 degrees, you are in for trouble. I mean, not very natural. I mean, 3 degrees is 5 degree Fahrenheit, and say from 99, if it goes to 104, you are out. You are in thermal shock and stroke follows. So just work around it. Work the cooling, refreshments, ventilation. So everything that need to be done, and that's where a good physical check programs will help. Whether the person is good. Already he should not have blood pressure and those kind of stuff which will make him unfit for the job, and respiratory fit and all that, so will make things happen. Protect from heat stress, cold stress, cold climates, wind chill factor, very very significant. Luckily we don't have in tropics. In some places in the west the temperature may be -10, but the wind chill makes it -25. So disaster. So you need to really work around to take care of these things, and work, so frostbite and those kind of things. That's what I said. So work around stress and work from engineering standpoint. Any mitigation measures for risk, heat stress, chemical risk, everything you need to work from engineering standpoint, and this is where it works. So radiations, fortunately many places less exposure, but still it's good to know alpha, beta, gamma, X-ray, neutrons. Work around it, and sometimes when you use your X-ray testing or non-destructive testing, those things you need to know and work a plan for it. So look everything from a liability perspective. Even your instruments, just make sure from your supplier, are you covered under the atomic radiation ARIB laws, and make sure that those you may not be principally responsible, but make sure the instruments you use are even covered and the regulations are fully in place, and that so that the compliance certificate is given, and then you have no issues, secondary issues arising out of use. And that's where a good risk assessment and profile would help from that. Laser, nowadays more and more usage, so work for it. Retinal and more physical damage, no long term effects, but just make sure. Again, does your instruments and other equipments have a laser source? If so, how will you protect it? Good to ask those questions and make sure that you get no as an answer from supplier. Ergonomics, I'm not covering it, just one slide, and this is going to be the biggest issue coming next. So work for it. Make the man workstation engagement fruitful. Work the workplace studies, carpal tunnel syndrome, material handling, manual handling. Make sure that the man and work synchronize and make for each other. Get inputs from operators and try to rectify the situation through ergonomic assessments, and through there are various methods available, and make sure that issues are addressed before the risk becomes very high and liability becomes. Biological, right? If you are in a pharma lab or those kind of stuffs, you will have these. You would be knowing what I'm talking about. And generally, chemical industry, manufacturing, not much of an issue other than lab and work around that. So food processing, if you are in a food processing, meat or beef industry, you need to take care of these kind of BL 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And bloodborne pathogen is very essential. So in terms of biological aspects, so work for that. Hepatitis B and AIDS could be a big challenge, more so when you do first aid. So that's where we insist that every first aider should have been vaccinated for hepatitis B, and if he says no, he should give it in writing, so that the liability is not on you. Monitoring, so you measure it, you are now known the risk, and you need to continuously monitor. So when you know the hazards, you need to monitor, and personal area, real time, for noise and other things as I covered, and So this is a personal dosimetry, the picture you see on the top, and lead XRF measurements, where old constructions and big paints, you need to work around that. And hot, cold, stress management, temperature sensors, controls, all those kind of things. So monitoring what gets measured gets done. So monitor it, track it, keep it, document it. So that's where, in good organizations, employees' health check records and testing records are to be kept 35 years after he retires. So, I don't know if the way people are living is 35 years good enough. You retire at 60 and, today people are living 95. So, I don't know if 96 you throw the record and then he gets something. So, I don't know if even 35 years of keeping a record of a post-employee leaving the company is good. I don't know. But documentation is essential for all the checks. Right? PPE is last but not the least, and procedures need to be worked. Again, this is where procedures are linked to risk assessments. A very good risk assessment will help you to know the hazards and work around, and data from material safety data sheets will help you to work the reduction of exposure of chemicals. PPE, right, work around protective clothing. Respirators. So, sometimes I see it. I see SCBA, I see masks, I see cartridges. Then when I ask them, do you have a respirator protection program? No. This could be a liability. You need to really know if you are going to use respirators, you need to have a respirator protection program with respiratory fit tests so that people are not exposed unduly. Let's say your security guard is going to use the SCBA and he smokes 40 cigarettes a day. His lung is not going to work around that. So need a good fitness program, need a good medical program, need a good surveillance program, work for that and work the concentrations. So measure it, know why you are doing it, get thorough knowledge and then use it. Just don't use it because copy paste. So that's what I wrote in my blog, the post-truths and alternative facts. So just don't copy paste because you saw in facility X. There may be slight deviations, what they do versus what you do, and it can cause issues. Hazard communication, that's where the whole world has aligned to global harmonization systems, and MSDS no longer is called MSDS, it's called safety data sheets, and these are the 16 sections that safety data sheet need to cover. And again, that's where carry out the training, communication, make the data available, update it, accessible to people, even with medical centers, doctors, your emergency brigades, your service providers. Keep those things everywhere so that people can know what substances you handle and when such exposures happen, what can happen even in an emergency situation. And so GSS Picture Global Harmonization System pictograms, and now everything is standardized, the same label across the universe, right? So regular health checkups, that, so carry out and keep the documents as I said, and interpret the results and communicate the results and keep the records at personal. The employee records are very personal and should be maintained very confidentially. I wouldn't like my records to be seen by somebody, third person. I would be very upset. Right? Safer system to be designed. Good housekeeping. Again, you do a good housekeeping, IH takes care of itself. Occupational medicine takes care of itself. Right? So again, it all starts from IH: leadership, involvement, engagement, commitment, coordination. So once those cultural elements are in place, many things will happen with the good risk assessments and mitigations. So if you may ask me, so how a good IH program looks in a good organization? So I go to sites, I audit. We have an exhaustive checklist running into tens of pages. And so we will look for these kind of, when you do IH audit, we will look for these kind of systems, so I won't read it. So, but these are the aspects we will focus it from industrial hygiene standpoint and rate them. Like if you had seen my presentation on risk-based audits, we rate it from 0 to 4 and then give a score for this. And IH takes about 20% weightage of the whole EHS system. So, there are elements, and these are the main. Many companies may have more than this, but this is the bare minimum that is used and audited. As far as occupational medicine, health, 19 standards. So, covers everything from bloodborne pathogen, first aid, medical, hepatitis, risk assessments, how will you do exposure measurements, food code standards, food handlers, right? So you are responsible. So food poisoning could be your issue. Hearing examinations, respiratory protection examinations, ergonomics, wellness, mental well-being. So a very key aspect to be done. Security of health service staff. This is a constant threat. So you need to work around that, in more so in workplaces. And the metrics, how you measure IH, how much planned, how much done. So IH and OIM becomes a management system, and you report to your management, and this becomes a part of management review. So how those aspects will happen. So there are about 19 standards. Again, these will be rated on a scale of 0 to 4, and ratings are given again with 20%. So if you have a good programs, again, each need a procedure, risk assessments. Procedure is nothing but, as I keep saying, 5 W's and 1 H. Who, what, where, when, why, and how. You answer each, you have a procedure as a baseline. So how a typical IH assessment looks like. So you take the chemicals, you write your process, same like risk assessments, no big rocket science. Write every activity, take the chemicals and see what is the TLV and what is the values you have got and which comfort factor you are in. So if your TLV is far, if your measuring values are far below TLV, you are comfortable. If it's in the 90th percentile of TLV, you need to really work the corrective actions so that you are in a safe situation. As I said, we look at it from our standpoint at about 50th percentile. So internally we work at about our 50th percentile and make sure that we are comfortable. So again, same like LEL, you would know when you do your welding, you keep your LEL at 10, your oxygen explosive meters should show 10% of LEL, so that you are then only allow work, or practically 0 is nice. So same way you work around for various chemicals and work these inventory and update it, so that if the values are 14% of LEL, you may do it once in 5-year assessment. If the values are 60%, try to do once in 2 years and see where you stand. And so then it gives you a beautiful risk profile where it stands, and then you can take it forward. So this is how you will do IH risk assessments. I won't read it and work around that. As I said, today India is very lucky to have a lot of IH experts to support the organizations, and test methods are available to implement them. So work around that and make it happen. So how the risk assessment form for substances will look. So every part of your chemical operations, write those steps, work the activity, what is the frequency of the activity happening. Same like risk assessments. So whether it's hourly, then it's a high risk. If it's yearly, low risk. And severity of that substance based on the MSDS, the TLV, TEL, permissible exposure limits, what do you call as TOG, irritant. So if all those substances are given, it's a cyanide could be a 5 and a water could be a 1. And likelihood, you not working that something going wrong, splashing due to your engineering systems or handling, manual handling, more risk. So give it again from 1 to 5, and so you have a 5 into 5 into 5 as the maximum risk 125, and 1 into 1 into 1 is the lowest risk. So you then see without current controls what is your risk. So if it is greater than 65 it is high, and if it is less than 30 it's low, and work the corrective actions through ventilation, engineering controls, personal protective, good storage handling, manual communication, administrative procedures, all that. So like for example, when we handle nitrocellulose, we had an administrative procedure that we will roll it once in 15 days, so that the substance doesn't mix up and gets mixed up and there are no exposure issue. So this is how you do it for every step of the operation where your substances are handled, right from receiving to dispatch of your finished product. So work around from a chemical safety focus and get those results. So this is a risk assessment. I think this is my last slide. So you see here how a risk is exposed, linking business. So this is for a food industry in chemical. They work the volumes. This is for supplier risk management, and the volumes, source geography, chemicals. So you see, India and China is high risk. Asia, excluding these two countries, 4. Central and South America, 3. Japan, EU, 2, 1. So then you can see. So even if you are going to source from it, the risk is high. So you will work the corrective mitigations into the chemicals. So this is how you link it even in your supply chain and get to know the risks and then work the mitigation. So your high risk factors would be mitigated for whatever reasons, and so the risk profile spreads beautifully. So here you have 5 into 5 into 5 into 5. So you are looking at 625 as your highest risk and 1 as the lowest risk, and so your spectrum will play out beautifully, and then you will be able to focus on specific risks and mitigate it through engineering controls or administration controls or whatever. So, and the money spent will be well known, this side. So what is the risk before controls, and what is the risk after controls, and what is the dollar spent per risk points reduced. So you will be able to immediately justify to your leadership and get the funding. So that's all I have, and I am very thankful to people for your time. I think I have taken about 40-45 minutes. I try to give a sharp overview and a snapshot. IH is a ocean, occupational medicine is an ocean. I mean, we can do sessions for 3 days. So, but I just wanted to give you a flavor how good companies do what they do and how the knowing doing gap is minimized. So please feel free to if you have questions, post it in my blog or in my website, YouTube. If I can answer, otherwise I'll get it from folks and get it answered for you. But IH and OM are very essential aspect of the invisible risks, as we call it. You don't see it, but you feel it 10, 15, 20 years down the line. So don't let that happen, and take advantage of folks and get it done. So once again, I am thankful for your time, and have a great evening, and God bless.